ScreenFiles.com with review. What I'm looking at today is Syfy's Van Helsing. Van Helsing is a series about the world being overrun by vampires. You don't know why, you don't know how, necessarily. Hints are given, but no, the full story isn't yet out there. And that's cool. It works well that way. Typically when I watch something from Syfy, I expect to see Sharknado or Elephant versus Shocktopus or something something bizarre and stupid like that. And that's not really fair because Syfy, the Syfy channel, or Syfy, has created some really good, or participated with airing, I should say, some really good science fiction. I mean, the Battlestar Galactica reboot was Syfy. Dark Matter is Syfy. The Expanse is Syfy. So they do really good work. But, unfortunately, their good work is often overshadowed by their crap. Anything the Asylum does, frankly, label crap. With good reason. I mentioned the Sharknado, Sharktopus, Sharktagon nonsense that they put out all the time. Z Nation. Crap. I should say the last time I watched it was crap. Maybe it could be reaching the Walking Dead levels of awesomeness. I doubt it. So, crap. And that's a pity. So, when I saw Van Helsing was on Netflix, I said, okay, I'm gonna give this a chance. Now keep in mind that, as I mentioned earlier, these are the same people that did Z Nation, which is The Walking Dead without the characterization, without the FX budget. And it's just not good TV. So I didn't go into Van Helsing that much enthused, if you will. But when I learned that it was Neil LaBute, who's a playwright, was involved with this series, and I've seen one of his plays, and I thought it was insightful. I thought maybe this has a chance. And keep in mind, at the time, I didn't remember that Neil LaBute also worked on and directed The Wicker Man. And here's a little scene from that movie.
Not the beast! Ah! Open my eyes!
As you can see, Neil LaBute's name on something doesn't make it good. Not by any stretch of the imagination. But at the time, I forgot about The Wicker Man. So I thought maybe he could bring something new and interesting to the genre. And while some of the FX on Van Helsing isn't great, overall it's pretty damn enjoyable, and it made me angry, but for all the good reasons. There's a character in Van Helsing played by Rukia Bernard, who is such a great actress. She's just impressive as shit. And I say that because she pissed me off. She made me feel, not in a good way, I can't stand her character, but that she elevated, her performance elevated the role in such a way that it literally angers me. And because she has this tendency in this series, and I'm not going to give it away, but she has this tendency to do something which is so fucking irritating, and she does it twice, and it has serious repercussions. This thing, it's not a minor thing. They bring out emotions in me is a sign that they're doing something right. So from this point on, I'm sold. Van Helsing is working. And I mentioned Rukia Bernard, but there are other actors as well, such as Christopher Heyerdahl, which he gives a performance as a deaf person, but it's a very interesting performance. I'm not going to tell you anything about his character either, and because it goes to interesting places, something I've never quite seen a person with a disability take. It's kind of fascinating. A little dark, but fascinating. Again, haven't seen this before. Very impressed with Mr. Heyerdahl's performance. Great stuff. You have Jonathan Scarf, who plays Axel Miller, who's a military dude, and who's, at least initially, the person who brings everyone together and brings his expertise and experience to fighting the vampires. It's well done. The effects, as I mentioned, they vary. Some are good, some are not so good, but it's not, even the worst effects don't hit Asylum level badness. So it's pretty good. It's not on any stretch Walking Dead level effects, but they're still pretty good. In fact, what this series reminded me of more than anything else was Blade. In fact, it feels like a sequel to Blade, except that instead of Blade you have Van Helsing, who's played by Kelly Overton. If the level of acting remains as high as it is, and it's quite high, this would not shock me at all if this series became almost as popular as The Walking Dead. It's very similar thematically. The only difference perhaps is that with The Walking Dead, you know certain characters will not die. I mean, sure, they killed Glenn, and they've killed other characters that you've known, but that's relatively rare, and the series has been on, I want to say, at least 4 or 5 seasons. So there are certain characters that they're not going to kill, or they will take their time to get to it. You know that already. Van Helsing actually has the opposite problem in some ways, in that while The Walking Dead holds many characters precious, Van Helsing doesn't. I mean, and it's kind of, I wish they were more like The Walking Dead in this respect, in that Van Helsing will kill a character. It's been on for just 1 season so far on Syfy. I think season 2 has already started, but only season 1 has appeared on Netflix. And they kill a lot of people. I mean, they have a core group, and they will kill 3 or 4 members of the core group. Keep in mind that core group may only have 8 or 9 people in it, and they're going to kill 3 or 4 in the first season, which is interesting because you begin to feel for certain characters, and they're killed off, which isn't a great thing to do, frankly. I mean, I'm glad that it doesn't treat characters as preciously as The Walking Dead does, but at the same time, you're building an audience for certain characters, for the show, as well as certain characters, and it would be kind of nice you didn't kill them quite so early. Another thing with Van Helsing is that it's very morally gray. For the most part, and I keep comparing it to The Walking Dead because that's the show it's most like, frankly. So Van Helsing is very morally gray in that everyone has ulterior motives for what they do, and it's not very black and white. And that's fascinating to watch because you can't trust anybody in this show. I mean, literally, someone who has been your friend and an ally for most of the season will suddenly turn and not be your ally. And to the show's credit, it's fleshed out and there's a logic to it. You don't like it. I mean, some of the twists and turns in this series I didn't particularly like. As I'm implying, I wish they didn't happen. But a lot of that's because I'm so accustomed to the model where a bunch of people get together, everyone shares similar goals and aspirations, and they work towards those goals and aspirations, like The Walking Dead, for the most part. And Van Helsing does not take that route. These people have their own agendas, their own goals that differ entirely from the group. Most of the time it's handled pretty well, sometimes not so well, but still, you go into Van Helsing and you don't know who's going to survive. And a neat thing, almost like a Deus Ex Machina, if you will, is that it's a mild spoiler. So Van Helsing, or I should say Vanessa Helsing, her blood has unique properties. Why it has these properties, or even what she is exactly, you don't quite know. All you know is that she's special and she's important. And initially, the show starts with protecting her. Her blood has, as I mentioned, unique properties. One of these properties is the ability to turn vampires human, which is interesting stuff, because people who have become vampires, if they take her blood, will no longer become vampires. So that's an interesting angle to take. And plus, this kind of bothered me initially. It's that the mode for her giving her blood was often that she's attacked and vampires would just kind of drain her and change human again. That was kind of annoying initially, but as the series progressed, she became more aggressive, and there are new ways that idea has gotten across. That worked a little better, but it's still an interesting series. It's a good series, and Simon Barry works on it. I mentioned Simon Barry because he worked on another series I happen to like, which Continuum. Continuum is very good and produced by Simon Barry. He's also working on Van Helsing, so he brings that aesthetic to it, and he's directed a few episodes as well. So if you're into vampires, zombies, or that type of thing, give Van Helsing a watch. It's worth the time, and it's not bad. And as I mentioned initially, if you're used to Syfy producing schlock, Van Helsing's not. Give it a chance. You'll like what you see. This is Brian from ScreenFiles.com with a review. Peace.